On the edge of known space, where the stars grew thin and the void stretched like old cloth, sat Outpost 7, a rusting med station bolted to the side of a dead moon. Rain fell there, though it made no sense. The moon had no clouds, no sky. Yet every few hours a fine silver drizzle coated the outer hulls, hissing as it hit hot metal. The locals called it ghost rain. They said it wept for those who died far from home. Inside Bay 3, Caleb Holt wiped sweat from his brow with a stained sleeve. He was not a hero, not a soldier, just a medic with tired eyes and a steady hand. Hired by the Outer Rim Relief Corps because he asked for little and complained less. His boots were worn, his uniform patched twice over, and his voice rarely rose above a murmur. But right now that quiet man stood over a child who was fading fast. She lay on the med table, small and pale, her skin the color of moonstone. Her veins glowed faint blue beneath the surface, pulsing weakly. Her breath came in shallow gasps, each one weaker than the last. Beside her, a Silthari elder wrung her hands, whispering prayers in a language that curled like smoke. The Silthari were rare, almost mythical. Tall, slender beings with pointed ears, silver eyes, and skin that shimmered like water under starlight. Most humans had never seen one. Fewer still had spoken to them. They kept to themselves, drifting between the forgotten systems, guarding secrets older than the Federation. And now one of their children was dying in Caleb's hands. He had tried everything. Synth plasma, cross-species transfusions, even the old Earth remedy of warm broth and quiet words. Nothing worked. Her blood was rejecting all known substitutes. Her heart fluttered like a trapped bird. Then, in a moment of desperation, Caleb did something no protocol allowed. He rolled up his own sleeve. Run a compatibility scan, he told the med droid, voice low. The droid beeped, confused. Subject is human. Recipient is Silthari. Cross-compatibility probability 0.0003%. Run it anyway. The machine whirred. Lights blinked. Silence stretched. Then, a single green pulse. The droid tilted its head. Anomaly detected. Human blood type O-negative shows unexpected resonance with Silthari hemoglobin structure. Transfusion may stabilize vitals. Caleb didn't hesitate. He connected the line. His blood, warm and red, flowed into the child's pale arm. At first, nothing happened. Then slowly, the blue glow in her veins softened. Her breathing deepened. Color returned to her cheeks, not human pink, but a soft pearl hue. Her eyelids fluttered open for just a second, revealing eyes like liquid silver. She looked at Caleb. Not with fear, not with confusion, but with recognition, as if she had been waiting for him. Outside the bay, unnoticed by all, a figure stood in the shadow of the corridor. Lyra Vey, the child's mother. She wore no armor, no weapon, only a long cloak woven from starmoth silk that shifted color with her mood. Right now it was deep indigo. Grief, yes, but also awe. She had watched through the observation glass as the human gave his blood without asking for anything in return. No credits, no favor, no promise. Just a quiet act, done in the dim light of a failing station. When the transfusion ended and Caleb slumped into a chair, exhausted, Lyra stepped forward. The med droid turned. Visitor not authorized in critical care. She raised a hand. The droid froze, its circuits humming softly before falling silent. She moved like mist, silent, fluid, inevitable. Caleb looked up. For a moment he couldn't speak. She was beautiful, yes, but it was more than that. There was weight in her presence, as if centuries walked with her. Her eyes held galaxies. You saved her, she said. Her voice was soft, melodic, but carried the chill of deep space. I just gave blood, he replied, rubbing his arm. Anyone would have done it. No, she said. No one else could. She stepped closer. Ember, her small dragon companion, padded in behind her. The creature was no bigger than a house cat, covered in iridescent scales that shifted from copper to violet in the light. Its eyes were large, intelligent, and fixed on Caleb with unnerving focus. It made no sound, but its tail curled like a question mark. Lyra knelt beside Caleb's chair. She placed her palm flat against his chest, just over his heart. He flinched, but her touch was cool, not cold. Calm. Your blood sings, she whispered. It carries a frequency we thought lost. Caleb frowned. I don't understand. You don't need to. Not yet. She withdrew her hand, but her gaze lingered. Nisa lives because of you. That is not a small thing among my people. What do you mean? Instead of answering, she turned and walked back toward the child's bed. Ember stayed behind. The little dragon circled Caleb once, then settled at his feet. curling around his boots like a living blanket. Caleb tried to nudge it away gently. "Hey, you should go with her." Ember blinked slowly, then rested its chin on its paws, eyes half closed but watchful. Lyra paused at the doorway. She looked back one last time. "Sleep well, Caleb Holt," she said, using his name as if she'd known it forever. "The debt has begun." Then she was gone. Caleb sat there, heart pounding for reasons he couldn't explain. The station hummed around him. The groan of old metal, the buzz of failing lights, the distant clang of boots on grating. Normal sounds, familiar, but nothing felt normal anymore. He looked down at Ember. The dragon opened one eye, gave a soft chirr, and nestled closer. That night, Caleb dreamed he stood in a forest made of light. Trees rose like crystal spires, their leaves chiming in a wind he couldn't feel. Above, 2 moons hung in a violet sky. In the distance, a child ran toward him. Nysa, but older, laughing, her hair streaming behind her like liquid silver. She held out her hand. "Papa," she said. He woke with a gasp. Rain tapped against the window. Ember was still at his feet, now snoring softly. Caleb sat up, rubbing his face. The dream clung to him like damp cloth. In the morning, he returned to the med bay. Nysa was sitting up, sipping something from a cup that steamed with soft blue vapor. She smiled when she saw him. A real smile. "Thank you," she said in halting standard. "You're welcome," he replied awkwardly. Lyra stood by the window, watching the ghost rain. She didn't turn, but she spoke. "Among my people, when one saves a life, a bond is formed. Not just of gratitude, of destiny," Caleb swallowed. "I didn't know that. You were never meant to." She finally turned. Her eyes searched his. "But now you are part of it." Before he could ask what she meant, alarms blared through the station. Red lights flashed. Voices crackled over the comms. "Unidentified vessel approaching Sector 7. No transponder." Repeating, "No transponder." Lyra's expression hardened. She scooped Nysa into her arms. Ember leapt onto Caleb's shoulder, claws gentle but firm. "Stay close to me," she said. Caleb didn't argue. He followed her down the corridor, heart racing. Outside, through a viewport, he saw it. A sleek black ship shaped like a blade, hovering just beyond the station's shield. "Who are they?" he asked. "Hunters," Lyra said. "They've been looking for us for a long time. Why?" "Because we remember," she said simply. "And memory is dangerous." As they hurried toward the lower levels, Caleb realized something strange. His arm, the one he'd given blood from, felt warm. Not painful, just humming, like a tuning fork struck in another room. And Ember on his shoulder pressed close as if shielding him. He didn't understand what was happening, but one thing was clear. His quiet life on the edge of nowhere was over. The human who gave blood to an alien child had just stepped into a war older than stars, and the elf woman with silver eyes wasn't going to let him walk away. 3 days passed. The black ship never left. It hung in orbit like a vulture, silent and patient. Outpost 7 went into lockdown. Supplies ran low. Tempers ran lower, but Caleb barely noticed. His mind was elsewhere, on the dream, on the warmth in his arm, on the way Ember still refused to leave his side. He tried to return to his duties, patching up miners with broken ribs, treating fevers from contaminated water. But every time he looked up, Lyra was there, watching from a distance, her expression unreadable. Nysa, now strong enough to walk, followed him like a shadow, her small hand often reaching for his. "You are kind," she told him once while he bandaged a cut on her knee. "Mother says kindness is rare in this age." Caleb didn't know what to say, so he just nodded. Then, on the 4th morning, everything changed. Lyra appeared before the station's council chamber, not as a guest, not as a refugee, but as a claimant. She wore a robe of woven starlight, its edges shimmering with ancient symbols. Ember coiled around her shoulders like living jewelry. Nysa stood beside her, dressed in soft white fabric, her eyes wide but steady. The council, 5 humans and 2 Krell diplomats, sat behind a long metal table. They were tired, skeptical, and wary of anything that might bring more trouble. "State your purpose," said Commander Ellis, a grizzled woman with a cybernetic eye. Lyra stepped forward. Her voice carried no anger, no plea, only certainty. "Caleb Holt saved my daughter's life with his blood. Among the Silthari, this creates a soul debt, not a debt of coin or service, but of lineage. A murmur ran through the room. Lineage, Ellis repeated. You mean marriage, not as your people understand it, Lyra said. But yes, he must join my bloodline. Our children will carry both human and Silthari essence. This is the only way the debt is fulfilled. If it is not, Nysa's life will unravel. Her body accepted his blood, but without the bond being sealed, the connection will decay. She will fade. Caleb, standing near the back, felt the floor tilt beneath him. That's not possible, he said, stepping forward. I just gave blood. That's it. Lyra turned to him. Her silver eyes held no malice, only sorrow. You do not understand what your blood is. Human blood, true human blood, unaltered by gene craft or augmentation, resonates with the old harmonies. We believed it extinct, but yours sings. This is insane, someone muttered. But the station's chief medic, an old man named Dr. Reed, cleared his throat. I ran the tests myself. His blood triggered a biological cascade in Nysa's system unlike anything in the database. It wasn't just compatibility, it was integration. Like their cells recognized each other across species. Silence fell. Ellis rubbed her temple. So what are you asking, Lyra Vey? I ask that Caleb Holt accept his place in our line, not today. Not with vows or rings, but with intent, with openness. The bond begins with choice. Caleb shook his head. I can't. I don't even know you. I don't know your world, your rules. You already touched it, Lyra said softly. When you gave your blood, you stepped into our story. You cannot step out. That night, Caleb couldn't sleep. He paced his quarters, the walls feeling too close. Ember sat on his bunk, watching him with unblinking eyes. Why won't you leave me alone? He asked the little dragon. Ember tilted its head, then leapt down and nudged his hand with its snout. A soft warmth spread from the touch, calm, steady, familiar. For a moment, Caleb's racing thoughts slowed. Then the dreams came again. This time, he stood in a ruined city. Towers of crystal lay shattered. The sky burned red. Lyra knelt in the ashes, cradling a child who was not Nysa, but looked like her. The child's eyes were closed. Her skin was cold. Lyra whispered a name, Ilara, over and over, her voice breaking. Caleb woke with tears on his cheeks. He didn't understand. But Ember did. The dragon curled around his wrist, humming softly, as if sharing a memory not its own. The next day, Caleb sought out Lyra. He found her in the station's greenhouse, a small dome where they grew algae and hardy earth plants under artificial suns. Nysa was helping her tend to a strange flower that glowed faintly blue. Why did you come here? Caleb asked. Lyra didn't look up. We were running. The hunters tracked us to the Helix Nebula. Our ship was damaged. Nysa fell ill. We had nowhere else. And you chose this station because I sensed something, she said. A whisper in the void. A frequency I hadn't heard in 200 years. Human. Pure. I didn't know it would be you. 200 years. Caleb blinked. You're that old, time moves differently for my kind. But yes, I was born before your Federation existed. He sat on a bench, stunned. So this bond, it's real as your heartbeat, she said, and just as necessary. But what if I say no? Lyra finally looked at him. Her eyes held no threat, only truth. Then Nysa will live a few more months, maybe a year, but her body will reject the harmony you began. She will weaken, fade, die. And the fault will not be yours alone, it will be mine for not ensuring the bond was honored. Caleb looked at Nysa. She was smiling at the glowing flower, her fingers brushing its petals. She looked so alive, so full of light. He thought of his own childhood, lonely, quiet, always on the move, no family to speak of, no roots. And now, suddenly, he was being asked to become someone's father, someone's partner, in a world he didn't understand. What if I try, he said slowly. But I fail. You already succeeded, Lyra said. You gave without expecting return. That is the first and hardest step. As they spoke, Ember flew to Nysa and landed on her shoulder. The girl laughed, a sound like wind chimes. That evening, Caleb made his choice. He went to Commander Ellis. I'll do it, he said. Not because I have to, but because she deserves to live. Ellis studied him. You sure about this, Holt? No, he admitted, but I'd rather try than watch her die. Word spread fast. Some called him a fool, others whispered he'd been bewitched. But most just watched, curious, as the quiet medic became part of something far bigger than himself. What no one knew, what Caleb himself didn't realize, was that the hunters had already moved. That night, as he walked back to his quarters, the lights flickered. The air grew cold. Ember, who had been perched on his shoulder, suddenly hissed. A sharp, warning sound. Then the comms crackled to life. Intruder alert. Sector Gamma. All personnel. The message cut off. From the corridor ahead, shadows moved. Not human shadows. Too tall. Too still. They wore black armor that drank the light. Their faces were hidden behind smooth masks that reflected nothing. The hunters. Caleb turned to run, but a hand grabbed his arm. Lyra. She pulled him into a service tunnel. Nysa close behind. Ember flared its wings, scales flashing crimson. They found us, she whispered. They always do. Why are they after you? Caleb asked, breathless. Because the Silthari remember the truth, she said. We remember what the hegemony erased, and they fear what we might awaken. As they ran through the dark tunnels, Caleb felt it again, the hum in his blood. Stronger now, like a song just out of reach. And for the first time, he didn't feel afraid. He felt ready. The tunnels beneath Outpost 7 twisted like old roots through rock and rust. Caleb ran, boots slipping on damp metal, heart hammering against his ribs. Lyra moved ahead, silent and sure, one hand gripping Nysa's. Ember darted between them, scales flickering from red to deep violet, a sign of high alert. They reached a dead end. A sealed hatch marked geothermal vent, restricted. Lyra placed her palm on the panel. Nothing happened. It's locked, Caleb said. Not for long, she replied. Ember leapt onto the panel and pressed its snout against the sensor. A soft chime sounded. The hatch hissed open, revealing darkness and the low rumble of heat below. How did it do that? Caleb asked. Flarekin are more than companions, Lyra said, ushering Nysa inside. They are living keys. Their biology resonates with Silthari tech. Ember remembers this place. They climbed down a narrow ladder into a cavern lit by veins of glowing blue crystal. The air was warm, thick with the scent of minerals and something sweet, like blooming night flowers. In the center stood a ring of stones, each carved with spiraling symbols that pulsed faintly. An old sanctuary, Lyra said. Built by my ancestors when they first came to this system, hidden from eyes that hunt. Caleb leaned against the wall, catching his breath. Who are these hunters? They call themselves the Veil, Lyra said, sitting beside Nysa. Once they were scholars, historians, but they grew afraid of memory, afraid of what the past might demand of the present. So they began erasing it, one species at a time. And the Silthari, we were the last keepers of the great archive, not written in books, carried in blood, in song, in flarekin like Ember. She looked at the little dragon who now curled at Nysa's feet. Each flarekin holds generations of knowledge, emotions, choices. They are libraries with hearts. Caleb stared at Ember. So it's not just a pet. No, Lyra said. It chose you the moment you gave your blood. That is rare. Flarekin do not bond lightly. As if in answer, Ember lifted its head and looked at Caleb. Its eyes shimmered, not with light, but with images. Flashes, a city of glass under twin suns, A woman singing to a child. A war fought not with weapons but with silence. Caleb gasped. I saw. Yes, Lyra said softly. It is sharing. Be still. He closed his eyes. The images came clearer now. He saw Lyra as a young woman, standing before a council of elders. He saw her flee with Nisa in her arms as black ships burned her home. He saw her weep over a grave marked only by a single feather, and then he saw himself, older, standing beside her in a field of silver grass, a child between them laughing. He opened his eyes, shaken. Why show me that? Because the bond is growing, Lyra said. Your blood and Nisa's are speaking to each other, and Ember is the bridge. Suddenly, the ground trembled. Dust fell from the ceiling. Far above, alarms wailed. They've breached the station, Lyra said, rising. They will scan for life signs, for Silthari energy. Can they find us here? Not easily. But if they bring a resonance drainer... She didn't finish. Caleb thought fast. There's an old maintenance shaft that leads to the reactor core. If we can get there, I can trigger a magnetic pulse. It'll scramble sensors for hours. Lyra nodded. Lead the way. They moved through the caverns, deeper into the moon's crust. Nisa held Caleb's hand now, her small fingers tight around his. She didn't speak, but her presence was steady, calm. As they walked, Caleb asked the question that had been burning in him. Why did you really come here, Lyra? She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, I was searching for hope, not just for Nisa, for my people. We believed humans were gone, wiped out or changed beyond recognition by the wars. But then I heard rumors, whispers of a station on the rim where a human medic still used old Earth methods. No machines, no gene edits, just hands and heart. And you thought I could help. I thought you might be proof that humanity still exists, not just as a species, but as a spirit. Caleb didn't know what to say to that, so he just squeezed Nisa's hand. They reached the reactor chamber, a vast humming space filled with coils of copper and plasma conduits. Caleb knew this place well. He'd fixed a coolant leak here just last month. While he worked at the control panel, Lyra stood guard, eyes scanning the shadows. Ember perched on a pipe, tail twitching. Almost there, Caleb muttered, rerouting power through a bypass line. Just need to... A voice echoed from the entrance. You cannot hide forever, Lyra Vey. They turned. 3 figures stood in the doorway. Tall, clad in matte black armor, faces hidden behind smooth masks. In the center stood a woman, taller than the others, her armor etched with silver lines. She removed her helmet. Her face was human. Sharp features, cold eyes, hair pulled back in a tight braid. But her pupils were slit, like a cat's. Commander Voss, Lyra said, voice hard. You remember me? Voss said. Good. I've waited a long time to finish what we started on Ilaris. You murdered my sister, Lyra said. You burned our archives. We saved the galaxy from chaos, Voss replied. Memory breeds rebellion. Rebellion breeds war. We bring peace through forgetting. That's not peace, Caleb said, stepping forward. That's silence. Voss looked at him for the first time. Her eyes narrowed. The human, the one who gave blood. She smiled, but it held no warmth. Foolish. You think kindness matters in a universe that only respects power? Maybe it doesn't, Caleb said, but it's all I've got. He slammed his hand on the panel. The reactor surged. A pulse of blue energy rippled through the chamber. Lights flickered. The hunters staggered as their suits glitched. Run, Caleb shouted. Lyra grabbed Nisa. Amber leapt onto Caleb's shoulder. They sprinted down a side tunnel as the hunters recovered, shouting orders. Deep in the moon's heart, they found a small chamber lined with more glowing crystals. In the center sat a pedestal, and on it, a single egg-shaped stone, pulsing with soft light. The Heartstone, Lyra whispered. Last piece of our home. She placed her hand on it. The light brightened. Images filled the air. Silthari cities, star maps, songs of creation. Ember, she said. Show him. The little dragon flew to Caleb and touched its forehead to his. This time the vision was clear. He saw the Silthari not as victims but as guardians. They had watched over the galaxy for millennia, preserving truth when empires rose and fell. They had tried to warn the Federation about the Veil, but no one listened. Then he saw something else, a prophecy. A human, marked by sacrifice, would stand with the last Silthari. Their union would awaken the Flarekin, and from that bond, a new beginning. The vision faded. Caleb looked at Lyra. "Is that why you want me?" "No," she said. "I want you because you chose to save a child when you owed her nothing. The prophecy is just confirmation." Above them, the hunters searched. But down here, in the quiet dark, something else was growing. Trust, hope, and the first roots of a family forged not by fate, but by choice. Ember curled around Caleb's wrist again, humming softly. And for the first time, Caleb didn't feel like an outsider. He felt like he belonged. Deep in the moon's core, time lost its shape. The air hummed with old energy, and the walls glowed with memories pressed into stone. Caleb sat with his back against the cool crystal, watching Lyra trace symbols on the heartstone. Nysa slept curled against Ember, her breathing slow and even. The little dragon's scales pulsed gently in time with the girl's heartbeat. Outside, the hunters had gone quiet. Too quiet. That worried Caleb more than shouting or weapons fire. Silence meant they were planning, waiting. "They'll find another way in," he said. Lyra didn't look up. "Yes, but not yet." The pulse damaged their scanners. "They must move blind. How long do we have? A few hours. Maybe less." Caleb rubbed his arm. The warmth there had grown stronger, spreading up his shoulder. Sometimes, when he closed his eyes, he could almost hear Nysa's thoughts. Not words, but feelings. Joy. Fear. Trust. It scared him, but not as much as it used to. "What happens now?" he asked. Lyra finally turned. Her silver eyes held a weight he was beginning to understand. "Now we finish what you started. I didn't start anything. I just gave blood." "You gave more than blood," she said. "You gave possibility. And possibility must be sealed or it fades." She walked to him and knelt. From a pouch at her belt, she drew a small knife made of black glass. "This is a blood vow. Not a marriage. Not a promise of forever, but a joining of intent. Your life and mine, your future and Nysa's, bound by choice. And if I do this, what changes? You will feel us. Truly. Not just emotions, memories, dreams, and your body will begin to change. Slowly. Your senses will sharpen. Your blood will carry Silthari resonance. You will become a bridge between our kinds." Caleb looked at Nysa. She stirred in her sleep, whispering his name. Ember opened one eye and chirped softly. He thought of his old life. Empty rooms, silent meals, days that blurred together. Then he thought of the last week. Fear, yes, but also purpose, connection. A child who called him Papa in her dreams. "Do it," he said. Lyra nodded. She pricked his finger first. A single drop of red blood fell onto the heartstone. It sizzled softly, then sank in, turning the stone a deep rose. Then she pricked her own finger. Her blood was silver blue. It swirled with his inside the stone, weaving together like threads. She placed her palm over his heart again. "Speak your will," she whispered. Caleb took a breath. "I choose this. Not because I have to, but because I want to." The stone flared. Light filled the chamber. Not harsh, but warm, like dawn. Caleb gasped as energy rushed through him. His vision blurred, then sharpened. He could see the veins in the walls, the pulse of the moon's core, the tiny spark of life in Nysa's chest. He heard Ember's thoughts, not in words, but in images. Loyalty, protection, hope. And then he felt Lyra, not just her presence. Her sorrow for her lost home, her fear for her daughter, her quiet, stubborn hope that maybe, just maybe, this human could help them survive. Tears rolled down his cheeks. The light faded. The chamber grew still. But everything had changed. Caleb stood. His body felt lighter, stronger, his mind clearer. He looked at Lyra. She was crying too. "It worked," she said. "I can feel her," he said, looking at Nysa. "Really feel her." Ember leapt onto his shoulder and nuzzled his cheek. The bond was no longer one way. It was whole. Then the ground shook. Not from the reactor. From above. Heavy impacts. Drilling. They found us, Lyra said. How? The vow. She realized. It broadcast our location. The resonance. It's like a beacon. Caleb's heart sank. So we led them right to us. Not led, Lyra said, standing tall. Called, and now we answer. She turned to the heartstone, placed both hands on it, spoke words in the old tongue. The stone cracked open, revealing a small glowing orb inside. The last archive, she said. All that remains of my people. She handed it to Caleb. Keep it safe. Before he could respond, the wall exploded. Dust and fire filled the chamber. Figures in black armor poured through, weapons raised. At their head stood Commander Voss, her eyes burning with triumph. End of the line, Lyra, she said. Lyra stepped in front of Caleb and Nysa. Ember hissed, scales flaring crimson. You will not take her, Lyra said. I don't want the child, Voss replied. I want the human. His blood is the key. With it, we can finally silence the Flarekin forever. Caleb froze. What, you didn't know? Voss smiled. Human blood doesn't just heal Silthari. It can also break them. One transfusion from a willing human binds, but one from a captured human. That can unravel the entire lineage. Lyra's face went pale. You planned this, Caleb said. Not me, Voss said. The Veil. They've been searching for a pure human for decades, and you walked right into their trap. She raised her hand. Take him. The hunters advanced, but Caleb didn't run. He stepped forward. Ember, he said. The little dragon leapt into the air and vanished. One moment it was there. The next gone. Voss frowned. Teleportation. Rare but not impossible. Then Ember reappeared on Voss's shoulder. Before she could react, it bit her neck. She screamed. Not in pain, in shock. Her body stiffened. Her eyes widened. No, she whispered. You can't. Show me that. She collapsed to her knees, hands clutching her head. Visions flooded her, memories not her own. A Silthari child laughing. A human mother singing. A galaxy where species shared stories instead of secrets. Stop, she begged. Ember leapt back to Caleb. The other hunters hesitated, unsure. Lyra didn't. She grabbed Caleb's hand. Now. They ran, not toward the surface. Deeper, into the oldest tunnels where the moon's bones were thinnest. Where are we going? Caleb asked, breathless. To the Echo Vault, Lyra said. A place outside normal space. Only Flarekin can open it. Can Ember do it? Only if you will it, she said. The bond makes you part of the key. They reached a dead-end chamber. The wall was smooth, featureless. Caleb placed his hand on it, thought of Nysa, of Lyra, of the future they might still have. Open, he whispered. The wall shimmered. A doorway appeared. They stepped through and vanished. Behind them, Voss rose, shaking. Her eyes were different now, softer. Haunted. Let them go, she told her hunters, voice raw. Some truths should not be erased. But her orders came too late. Far away, in a place between stars, Caleb, Lyra, Nysa, and Ember stood in a vault made of light and silence. Shelves stretched into infinity, filled not with books but with glowing orbs. Each one a memory, a life, a song. This is the real archive, Lyra said, hidden beyond space. Caleb looked around, awed. We're safe here, for now, she said. But the Veil will keep searching, and they will find others like you. Then we stop them, Caleb said. How? By showing the galaxy what they're trying to erase. He looked at her. You said I was proof humanity still exists. Maybe it's time we prove it together. Lyra smiled, the first real smile he'd seen. Outside the vault the war waited, but inside, a family had just been born. The Echo Vault was not a place but a feeling, a space folded between moments where time pooled like still water. Caleb stood at its edge, watching galaxies swirl in the distance like dust motes in sunlight. Nysa slept on a soft mat woven from memory thread, her chest rising and falling in peaceful rhythm. Ember coiled around her like a living blanket, scales dimmed to a gentle gold. Lyra stood beside Caleb, her hand resting lightly on his arm. The bond between them hummed, quiet but constant like a second heartbeat. They had been here 3 days, or maybe 3 weeks. Time did not move the same way inside the vault. Outside, the Veil tightened its grip on the outer systems. Ships vanished. Colonies fell silent. Rumors spread of a new weapon, one that could sever psychic bonds, erase ancestral memory, and silence Flarekin forever. But here, in this hidden place, hope still lived. "We can't stay," Caleb said. Lyra nodded. "I know. They'll keep hunting. Not just you. Anyone like Nisa, anyone with human blood. Then we must move first," she said. "Not as fugitives. As founders." Caleb turned to her. "Founders of what? A sanctuary," she said. "A place where Silthari, humans, and others the Veil fears can live without hiding. A place built on memory, not erasure." He looked at Nisa. "It's dangerous. So is doing nothing." Caleb thought of his old life, small, safe, empty. Then he thought of the warmth in his blood, the weight of ember on his shoulder, the way Nisa smiled when he told her stories about Earth. He had not asked for this, but he would not walk away from it. "How do we start?" Lyra smiled. "We call those who remember." She placed her hand on the heartstone orb they had brought from the moon. It glowed softly. Ember leapt onto Caleb's shoulder and touched its snout to his temple. Visions bloomed, not just of the past, but of others. A Krell scholar hiding ancient texts in a derelict freighter. A Dravi pilot who smuggled Silthari children to safety. A human engineer on the rim who still taught her children old Earth songs. Scattered, alone, but waiting. "They feel the bond too," Lyra said. "Now that your blood and mine are joined, the resonance reaches farther. They will hear the call." Caleb understood. "We're not just building a home. We're lighting a signal." Yes. They left the vault at dawn. Not a real dawn, but the moment the vault's light softened to pale blue. Ember opened a path through folded space, and they stepped out near the ruins of a dead world called Atheris. Once it had been a Silthari colony. Now only broken towers and overgrown gardens remained. But beneath the ruins, the old network still lived. For weeks, they worked. Caleb used his medic skills to heal the land, filtering toxins, planting hardy seeds, setting up solar collectors from salvaged parts. Lyra sang to the earth, waking dormant crystals that powered hidden systems. Isa played among the ruins, her laughter drawing small creatures from hiding. Ember scouted the skies, returning each night with news of approaching ships, some hostile, most curious. The first to answer the call was a Krell named Orin. He arrived in a battered freighter, its hull patched with mismatched metal. He carried 3 Silthari children and a crate of ancient data slates. "You are real," he said, tears in his many eyes. "We thought the last line was lost." Then came Maeve, a human pilot with red hair and a cybernetic leg. She brought refugees from 7 systems, all marked by the Veil for remembering too much. "Heard a rumor," she said, grinning. "Said a human bled for an elf child and lived. Figured that was the kind of crazy I could follow." More came. A Dravi poet, a Zenthar botanist, even a former Veil enforcer who had seen too much and defected. They built shelters from crystal and scrap. They shared food, stories, songs. They taught each other old words and new dreams. And at the center of it all stood Caleb and Lyra, not as rulers but as anchors. Their bond held the fragile community together, a living proof that difference could create strength. Not division, but the Veil would not ignore them forever. One evening, as twin moons rose over Atheris, alarms echoed through the valley. Ember shot into the sky, scales flashing red. "They found us," Maeve said. Scanning the horizon with her scope, a fleet appeared. Black ships, sleek and silent, forming a ring around the planet. At their center floated the prison moon Kalis, a floating fortress where the Veil held those who resisted erasure. "They want you," Orin said to Lyra. "And him." He nodded at Caleb. Lyra looked at Caleb. "You do not have to go." "I do," he said. "This ends now." He turned to Maeve. "Get everyone to the deep vault. Use the tunnels." "What about you?" "We have to face them." That night, Caleb and Lyra stood at the edge of the valley, Ember coiled around Lyra's arm. They wore no armor, carried no weapons, only the Heartstone, now pulsing with the light of every soul in the sanctuary. The Veil ships descended. A single shuttle landed. Commander Voss stepped out. She looked different, thinner. Her eyes no longer cold, but tired, haunted. "You should have run," she said. "We're done running," Caleb replied. Voss studied him. "You don't understand what they'll do to you. They'll drain your blood drop by drop. Use it to break every Silthari left alive." "Then why are you here?" Lyra asked. Voss hesitated. "Because I saw what Ember showed me." I remembered. My grandmother. She used to sing in a language I never understood. I thought it was nonsense. But it was Silthari. She was a keeper. And they erased her. She looked at Nisa, watching from a distance. I won't let them do it again. Before anyone could react, Voss turned and shot her own comm officer. Chaos erupted. Veil soldiers poured from the shuttle, but so did others. Defectors, prisoners who had been waiting for a sign. The sky lit with fire and light. Now, Lyra said. Caleb stepped forward, raised the heartstone, and spoke the words Ember had taught him in dreams. Our blood is one. Our future is shared. The stone flared. Light exploded outward, not blinding but revealing. Every Silthari in the valley glowed. Every human felt a surge of warmth. The Veil soldiers froze as memories flooded them, of mothers, of songs, of lives before the silence. The prison moon's shields flickered. Inside, thousands of captives felt the resonance. Bonds shattered. Cells opened. The Veil's control cracked. Voss ran to Caleb. You have to go now. They'll send the High Inquisitor. And the one who started it all. He's coming. Lyra's face paled. Kyle Ren, you know him. He was my betrothed, before he chose power over memory. They had no time. Ember opened a path, not to the vault, but to the prison moon itself. Why? Caleb asked. Because he holds the Master Archive, Lyra said. The one they stole from Alaris. If we destroy it, the Veil loses its power. But if we reclaim it, we restore everything. They teleported into the heart of the fortress. Cold. Silent. Sterile. At the center of the chamber stood Kale Ren. Tall, regal, his silver hair tied back, his eyes empty of warmth. Lyra, he said, you always were sentimental. You betrayed your own people, she said. I saved them from pain, he replied. Memory is a wound that never heals. No, Caleb said. It's a compass. Kale turned to him. The human. How quaint. Do you think your blood matters here? He raised a hand. A silence field activated, designed to sever psychic bonds. Caleb felt the connection to Lyra and Nisa stretch thin. Ember cried out, scales dimming, but then Nisa's voice echoed in his mind, not from outside but from within. Papa, hold on. And he did. He thought of Earth, of rain on rooftops, of his mother's hands, of Nisa's laugh, of Lyra's quiet strength. His blood burned. The silence field shattered. Kale staggered back. Impossible. Not impossible, Lyra said. Human. She stepped forward, placed her hand on the Master Archive, a massive crystal pulsing with stolen memories. Remember, she whispered. The crystal responded. Light filled the chamber. Memories poured out, not just Silthari, but human, Krell, Dravi, Zenthar. Every voice the Veil had tried to silence. Kale fell to his knees, overwhelmed by the weight of what he had destroyed. Outside, the battle turned. The defectors rose up. The prison moon's systems failed. Ships broke formation. In the chaos, Caleb grabbed Lyra's hand. Ember teleported them back to Atheris. The sanctuary stood. The people cheered. But Caleb knew this was not the end, only the beginning. Weeks later, they left Atheris, not in a warship, but in a vessel built by many hands, human, Silthari, Krell, Dravi. They called it the Vessel of Memory. Their destination was unknown, but their purpose was clear, to find others, to heal, to remember, and to build a future where a human could give blood to save an alien child, and not be seen as strange, but as natural, as right. As they sailed into the starry dark, Nisa sat between Caleb and Lyra. Ember curled in her lap. She looked up at Caleb. Are we a family now? He looked at Lyra. She smiled. Yes, he said. We are. And in that moment, across 1,000 worlds, others felt the bond stir. Hope, once lost, was returning, carried not by empires, but by a medic, an elf woman, a child, and a dragon, together.